The unexpected startup of machines during maintenance or servicing has been the cause of many deaths and serious workplace injuries. The federal government has estimated that as many as 120 deaths and 50,000 injuries occur every year due to failure to follow appropriate lockout-tagout procedures. As a result, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, has issued what is known as the Lockout-Tagout Standard to protect employee safety and to minimize the dangers associated with the unexpected energization or startup of machines or equipment. This training program has been designed to provide you with a comprehensive understanding of the Lockout-Tagout Standard and how it affects employees like you. Understanding and following the rules of the standard will help ensure your safety in the workplace.
As a new safety manager, I'm concerned about these numbers. I'm sure that you heard about the incident at BMJ Flour Mills. Their own safety record wasn't much better.
I read about that in the newspaper. The report said that an employee was servicing a machine. He left the machine and went on break. Another employee came in, started the machine, and got a huge jolt.
That jolt was a sudden release of hazardous energy, and it was severe enough to injure the employee.
I called the CEO, and she and her staff were pretty upset about the incident, and it was completely avoidable.
Absolutely. As safety manager at my last company, I implemented an effective lockout-tagout training program, and our safety record improved significantly. I plan to do the same here at Huntington, and the first training class starts tomorrow.
Oh, that's good to hear, Dan. We need to keep that safety record clean. Listen, I'm going to go over and talk to Henry. He's over on line 407. We need to increase production to make up for lost volume. But if we can keep the sales and the safety record going in the right direction, that's what I like.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Dan Wilson, and I'm the new safety manager here at Huntington Paper. We're here to discuss the Lockout-Tagout Standard. Who here knows something about this topic? Yes?
Well, I've heard the term. I'm not completely sure, but is it something about locking an employee off the company premises?
Actually, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration, or OSHA, defined the Lockout-Tagout Standard. It was designed to make sure specific procedures are followed when machines or equipment are being serviced to protect employees from workplace injuries due to unexpected startup resulting in the release of stored energy. So it's about preventing accidents. So it's not so much as designed to keep people off the premises as it is to keep them out of harm's way. Now, before we learn more about lockout-tagout, let's learn about the different types of employees impacted by the standard. You might be surprised OSHA has defined 3 types of employee categories: affected, authorized, and other employees. Now listen closely and decide which category applies to you. The first is the affected employee. Now this is someone who operates machinery or equipment on which lockout-tagout procedures and maintenance services are performed, or whose job requires him or her to work in the same area as this equipment or machinery. Now the affected employee doesn't perform the service or maintenance, and they're not responsible for locking out or tagging out the equipment. If this were the case, the affected employee would become an authorized employee, which I'll tell you about next. But first, let's see who's paying attention. Who in this room is an affected employee? Good. Most of you work in the main plant operating the machines. Now the next category is the authorized employee. Now this is an employee who actually performs lockout-tagout procedures and may also service or maintain the equipment or machines. Now we have 2 authorized employees in this training session today. The first is Jeff, who is a new repair technician with our company. The second is Tara, who's been applying lockout-tagout procedures for the past 5 years. The third and final category is the other employees. These are employees who are indirectly impacted by lockout-tagout because they may occasionally be in areas where machines may be nearby. But they don't operate, nor do they maintain the machines themselves, nor do they necessarily work in areas near the machines. It's important to define this other employee category so that the employees will understand the procedures used in their work area to prevent accidents and injuries.
Yeah, Dan, now that I understand that I'm only an affected employee, I really don't see the need to be here, especially, when I have work to do and deadlines to meet.
I see why you might feel that way, but it's extremely important for your safety to complete the lockout tagout training. I'll tell you a story to illustrate why. A few years ago, I was an authorized employee at Walkerson Mills, and I'd tagged out a machine for repairs. Now, my coworker, Ricky, was an affected employee. Just like you, he was in charge of operating machinery, but he wasn't responsible for lockout, tagout, or service work. Later, he told me that he'd attended the training class, but didn't pay much attention. Anyway, one day, another employee asked Ricky to restart the machine that I'd tagged out.
Dan left hours ago. I can take this off.
Since Ricky wasn't familiar with the company's lockout, tagout procedures, he ended up causing severe injury to himself and the other employee. Not to scare you, but this is a very serious issue. So, are we ready to stick around and learn even more?
Yeah.
Good. Now let's talk about under what circumstance the lockout, tagout procedure applies. It applies to any servicing or maintenance activities such as repair work, modifications, or replacements made to equipment or machines powered by released or stored energy. Now, the standard must be applied when servicing or providing maintenance when an employee is required to remove or bypass machine guards or other safety devices, or an employee is required to make direct physical contact with the machine at the point of operation, or at another point of the machine where there are dangerous moving parts. Now, let me give you fair warning. We're about to get into some technical stuff, so if you're not already awake, or at least a coffee drinker, now is the time to wake up!
Those of you watching this video should have been provided with a training manual to keep. The following definitions are covered there. You may refer to them at any time to supplement what you will learn today.
Okay, you've heard me say that the lockout, tagout procedure is in place to prevent the energization of a machine. So what exactly is energization? Well, energization happens when a machine or piece of equipment is connected to its energy source or when residual energy is stored within the machine. Energy sources can be electrical, mechanical, hydraulic, pneumatic, chemical, or thermal. These and other energy sources are referred to as hazardous energy sources, since they may cause harm to employees or the work environment. Now, the only way to prevent the energization of a machine is by cutting off its source of energy. That brings us to our next term, energy isolation device. Now, an energy isolation device is a mechanical device that physically prevents the transmission or release of stored energy. Some examples may include a manually operated or electrical circuit breaker, a disconnect switch, a line valve, or a block. When performing lockout tagout procedures, locks or tags are attached to energy isolating devices such as these. Now, some energy isolating devices are capable of being locked, others are not. When this is the case, tags are used. So now we can see that the term lockout refers to the placement of a lockout device on an energy isolating device in accordance with established procedures. This is done to ensure that the energy isolating device and the equipment being controlled cannot be operated, at least until the lockout device is removed. Now, the lockout device itself is typically a device such as a key or combination type locks, blank flanges, and bolted slip binds, all of which can hold an energy isolating device in a safe position to prevent the energization of a machine or equipment. Tagout refers to the procedure used when attaching a prominent warning device, such as a tag, to an energy isolating device. Now, the primary purpose of tagout is to warn employees not to operate the equipment being worked on. Now, it's important to remember that tags are just warning devices. They don't provide the same type of physical control that a lock does. Given this, tags must never be ignored, and they should only be removed by the employee who applied them. They must also be legible and understandable to all employees in the work area. There are several types of modern tagout devices, and employers can choose from many lockout-tagout device options. OSHA mandates that all equipment needed for securing machines from energy sources must be provided by the employer, durable, standardized in color, shape, and size within the company, used only as intended to prevent the flow of energy, strong enough to prevent accidental removal, clearly marked with the name of the worker who applied it. Lockout-tagout devices should never be used to lock storage areas, toolboxes, etc., borrowed or lent to other employees. Okay, now I know this is a lot of information. Who has the first question? Yes?
Are all the lockout devices used within the company exactly the same?
No, they don't have to be the same. But all lockout-tagout devices used within this or any company should be of a standard color, size, and shape for ease of recognition.
For those watching this video, your safety trainer should be able to provide you with more information about the specific lockout-tagout procedures and devices used in your company.
Yes?
Can an employee ever remove a lockout device applied by another employee?
As a general rule, it's most reliable to require the same person who applied it to also remove it. However, there are certain circumstances where the authorized employee who applied a lock or a tag may not be present to remove the device. OSHA says that an employer should have specific documented procedure for the removal of these devices. These procedures should include the following steps. Verify the authorized employee who applied the device is not present at the facility. Make every reasonable effort to contact the original authorized employee and let him or her know that the lockout-tagout device is being or has been removed. Take steps to ensure that the original authorized employee is aware of the lockout-tagout device removal before he or she returns to the facility. Anyone else? Yes?
So, are there special procedures when more than one employee is required to service a machine at the same time?
Yes. Group lockout-tagout procedures must ensure that none of the workers present will accidentally start the machine while another person's working on it. Each person is required to apply his or her own personal lock to what's known as a multiple lockout device. In multiple lockout-tagout procedure, one employee has primary authority over a group of authorized employees and is responsible for keeping track of the exposure status of all workers. As each authorized employee finishes work on the machine, he or she removes his or her own lock from the multiple lockout device. Typically, the primary employee is the last to remove his or her own personal lock. Anyone else? Yes?
How do we maintain lockout-tagout during shift or personnel changes?
Great question. There are times when service work must continue from one shift to the next. In these instances, lockout-tagout procedures must be applied consistently. The worker going off shift must remove their lockout-tagout device, and the worker coming on applies his or her own. Well, if there are no more questions, let's move into the warehouse where we can observe firsthand the steps that define lockout-tagout procedures. Okay, now lockout-tagout procedures consist of steps, and they must be followed exactly in order to ensure the safety of employees. Now, it's important to bear in mind that while authorized employees are the only ones that actually apply these procedures, affected and other employees must know why they are used in order to promote a safe environment. Now, I will explain each of these steps, and Tara, will you demonstrate as needed?
Sure.
Thank you. All right. All right. Now, step one is to prepare for shutdown by notifying employees that a lockout-tagout system is to be in effect on a specific machine. Warning signs may be posted as necessary. When preparing to shut down equipment, authorized employees must know the type and magnitude of the equipment's power, hazards of the energy which must be controlled, and methods for controlling the energy. Step two is the shutdown of operating equipment by using the normal stopping procedure. The shutdown of any machine should not cause increased hazard to the employees. The authorized employee must isolate the machine from its energy source. The energy isolation devices must be operated so that the equipment is not only isolated from its energy source, but also completely de-energized. The next step is the actual attachment of a lockout-tagout device to an energy isolating device by the authorized employee. Isolation devices such as switches must be held in their off position by a lockout device. Each lockout-tagout device must be clearly marked by the employee who applied them. When using a tagout device, each tag should clearly indicate that the isolation device must remain in its safe or off position. After the lockout-tagout devices have been applied, the employee moves on to step 5, the release of stored energy. The authorized employee must release, restrain, or disconnect any potentially hazardous or stored energy. This can be done by blocking elevated parts, draining lines, bleeding pressure, discharging capacitors, allowing equipment to cool, or any other specified methods. Now, this step must continue until you're certain that there is no possibility that the stored energy could reaccumulate to potentially hazardous levels. Any amount of stored energy can be extremely harmful. Now, the last step is verification, and this is crucial. Now, this assures that the lockout-tagout procedures have been effective in isolating the equipment from the energy source. The authorized employee must attempt to operate isolating devices such as switches and then return the devices to the off position. Testing equipment and reading gauges may also be part of this process. At this point, it should be safe for the authorized employee to begin service work or maintenance. Those are the steps that enable servicing and maintenance to take place. Now let's talk about lockout-tagout release, which occurs when maintenance and repair work is completed. First, before any lockout-tagout device can be removed, the authorized employee must reassemble all parts. Now this includes guards, operating devices, and protective devices. Remove all non-essential items and tools from the operating area of the equipment, and ensure that the equipment is in proper working order and ready for operation. Next, the authorized employee must ensure that all employees are positioned safely or located away from the area of equipment operation. Finally, the authorized employee who applied the lockout-tagout device should remove it. Then immediately notify all affected employees that the device was removed. The machine or equipment has now been restored to normal operating status and may be restarted. Tara, thanks for the assistance. Now this provides a good overview of OSHA's lockout-tagout standard and related procedures from start to finish. Any questions? Yes?
How can we be sure these procedures are being followed?
Well, companies are required to document their lockout-tagout procedures as part of their energy control program. Now, an energy control program contains energy control procedures, employee training requirements, and periodic inspections of machinery or equipment that may cause injury due to unexpected energization, startup, or the release of stored energy. There is also a requirement for employers to keep training and inspection records. Now, training records must include certification that employee training has been completed and is being kept up to date. This certification must contain the name of each trained employee and the date of training. It's also important to remember that retraining must be provided to employees whenever there is a change in job assignments, machinery, equipment, or process that may present new hazards, or when there is a change in the energy control procedures. Also, additional retraining is necessary whenever a periodic inspection reveals or an employer has reason to believe that an employee does not have adequate knowledge of or is incorrectly using the energy control procedures. Now, periodic inspections must be conducted no less than once a year by an authorized employee. In doing so, lockout-tagout procedures are examined, and if any deficiencies are found, they are to be corrected. As a part of the record-keeping requirement, inspection certificates are issued showing the inspector's name, the inspection date, identifying the machine or equipment, and all the employees included in the inspection.
I've noticed outside contractors working on the machines. Do they also have to comply with lockout-tagout procedures?
Yes, sometimes it may be necessary to call outside contractors in for repair or service work. And yes, these contractors are required to follow lockout-tagout procedures. Each contractor should be thoroughly advised of the company's procedures. And in turn, the contractor should notify the company of any procedures it may require as well.
As part of the lockout-tagout procedure, you mentioned that testing happens during the last step. How does that work?
Occasionally during repair work, machines have to be activated for testing or repositioning. Now, when this is necessary, authorized employees may suspend lockout-tagout by following these steps in the exact order. First, remove all tools and materials from the machine. Next, ensure that there are no employees near the machine or in the work area. Then remove lockout-tagout devices and immediately notify all affected employees. Next, energize the machine for testing or repositioning. After that, de-energize the machine and follow lockout-tagout procedures.
This is pretty serious business.
It is. I hope everyone in this company takes lockout-tagout seriously. The repercussions for taking it lightly can be severe. You know, there's an old saying, prevention is better than the cure. This seems especially applicable to lockout-tagout procedures. So let's be vigilant in the way that we work and maintain a safe work environment for everyone here. Now, to ensure that everyone's absorbed all the information we've covered today, let's go back to the classroom and take a quiz.
Hey, Dan, I heard great things about your presentation. You know, what would you think about doing the same presentation for the office staff? You know, because they do come under the guise of, other employees. And, the lockout-tagout system is not just for the people who manufacture in the warehouse.
Good call. Actually, that's the next group on my list.
Hey, Jeff, we've been asked to restart the 407 production line, but the box machine is down. We need you to repair it right away so we can get our new product line out on time.
Yeah, no problem. I can get it fixed tomorrow before I go on my lunch break.
Oh, great.
And I can't believe big deal Dan was making about lockout-tagout. I've been with this industry for over a decade, and I just think it's a big waste of time to go through all these little procedures every single time a machine needs to get repaired.
Jeff, you heard what happened at the flour mill, and Dan gave a bunch of other examples. You need to take this seriously and use the procedure every time you work on a machine, if not for your own safety, for the safety of others.
Man, talk about paranoia. You're gonna tell me, Jeff Anderson, how to do my job. I don't need this lockout-tagout kit. I've been working on these machines for years. I could do it with my eyes closed. It's gotta be a paper jam. It's gotta be a paper jam.
Well. Looks like Jeff did get finished before lunch after all. Well, let's get production started. We got a lot to get through. We start with this one. The 240 side goes on.
Whoa! Hey, Dan, just want to let you know I got the box machine working and the 407 production line's up and running. Orders are already going out.
So, what was that loud yell I heard? You guys horsing around back there?
Actually, I got to tell you, Dan, I learned a pretty big lesson today. After the class, I went to go fix the box machine. I didn't bring my lockout-tagout. I figured I didn't need it for such a quick repair. Turns out that wasn't the case. I was underneath the machine working on it when Henry came in. Naturally, when he didn't see my lockout-tagout devices or me, he started the machine up. Dan, I gotta tell you, when that thing roared to life, it scared me so much I screamed. Sorry if I caused any alarm.
Fortunately, alarm is all that you caused. As you know, it could have been much, much worse, Jeff. I'm glad that you learned an easy lesson, and I trust that from now on you'll take lockout, tagout seriously.
You bet I will. Thanks, Dan.